Hey, my name is Brock Morgan. I'm a pastor in Southern California, and it is Good Friday, such an important day. And I hope that our passage this morning moves you as much as it did me. We're going to be reading the part where in Matthew chapter 27 where Jesus is buried. And initially it feels like maybe these details aren't so important, but we discover actually Matthew is doing something critical here. And so let's look at the passage and then we'll talk about it. It's Matthew chapter 27, beginning in verse 57. I'll read it. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. After 3 days, I will rise again. Therefore, command the tomb to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can." So they went there with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone. Okay, now I got to confess something to you. I'm a terrible chess player. You play me in chess, a child, a little kid can beat me. I am terrible at it. I don't know really where to move the pieces, and I'm terrible at anticipating the person I'm playing. I can't anticipate their moves. But the mark of a good player is they always anticipate the moves of their opponent. And this is more or less what Matthew is doing in describing Jesus' burial. In many ways, the burial story is actually an anticipation of the resurrection. See, Matthew is moving the necessary chess pieces into place for the game. Now, the central claim of the early church was that Jesus of Nazareth had been raised from the dead. And of course, people thought this was ridiculous. They were not quick to believe it. Some laughed, some scoffed at the idea. They knew dead people stay dead. Then there were those who offered alternative explanations. Some said, well, maybe he didn't really die, or maybe the disciples did indeed steal the body, or maybe other people, someone else stole the body, or perhaps the women were clueless and they went to the wrong tomb, and of course there was no body there. And so, like a skillful chess player, Matthew is getting ahead of those arguments beforehand. Matthew's careful to explain this tomb, it was new, and there were no other bodies in there. Matthew knew that grave robbery was actually a common thing in those days, so he's careful to tell us that there was a huge circular stone placed at the mouth of the cave and that it was sealed. The fact that Joseph requested Jesus' body shows well enough that Jesus was indeed dead. He went to Pilate, and Pilate was like, yep, you can have this dead body. And then the Roman soldiers, you got to know that they knew what they were doing. Roman soldiers and governors didn't go halfway at all when it came to carrying out capital punishment. Jesus was indeed dead. And then you got the chief priests scheming and plotting. And at this time, in this passage, you can see they're super anxious to avoid any of this. And so they obtained the guards of Roman soldiers from Pilate to come to the tomb, to guard the tomb. And then we find out later that, again, they sealed it. They sealed the stone to make sure it wasn't moved. Now, Matthew is careful to let us know that the women, they were there on Friday, and so they knew which tomb it was when they came again Easter Sunday morning. Matthew is clear about all this. He wants us to know there's no confusion. There's no funny business that's going on in any of these details. He thought, if someone is going to doubt whether Jesus was raised from the dead, it must be because they just don't believe that the living God could or would do such a thing for Israel's Messiah, the one whose shoulders rested the weight of the world's salvation. This is all that it's massive stuff is at stake here. And as we watch the burial of Jesus, and today we meditate on Jesus's going before us into the tomb, which is humanity's destiny, we stand in awe once again at the thought that he alone has found the way through death and out into God's new world. And Matthew, man, he can hardly wait to take us further into the story in the next chapter where all is going to be revealed. And so may the power of this day, with all of its wonder, be on our hearts and in our minds as we get closer to Easter morning. God bless you on this day.